Welcome to Hashtag No Limits. I am your host, Shelly Kino. Hashtag No Limits is about people that society puts limits on, but who have busted through those limits. During my teaching career and now as a master IEP coach, I have had the privilege of watching students push past those limits that have been placed upon them. Ophelia says in Hamlet, "We know what we are, but not what we may be." I believe this to be true and that there's no better example than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. The caterpillar literally dissolves and its cells reform into a butterfly. As the butterfly emerges from the cocoon, it has to struggle in order to be able to be strong enough to fly. Obviously, it's not an easy process, but neither is breaking through limits that society has set upon a person. But just like the caterpillar, when we believe in ourselves, we can accomplish more than others might think. And if we have a support system, think about the cocoon of the support system around us to encourage and facilitate our growth, even better. I love being a support to the families and their children and now helping them push through those limits. Today, my guest has been the caterpillar, the cocoon, and the butterfly. She is a fellow master IEP coach, and I can't wait for you to meet her. Welcome, Shri, and thank you for joining me on Hashtag No Limits. Tell us more about yourself and your family.
Hi, so my name is Sri, and I'm a mom of 3 kids who are doing virtual learning right now. So it's fun at our house. My husband's also working at home. So we're all home.
It's crazy time at your house.
It is. So I have a little bit of quarantine brain because I don't get to go out. So we've been doing a lot of virtual things at home.
Yeah, I bet. So what grades are your kids in?
So I have a 2nd grader and I have a 4th grader, and she would have been in preschool, but she's 2. So we have finding activities to keep the little one busy while the other ones are in Zoom is becoming strainful. Everything is closing again here. So we're just using what we have.
Yeah, my daughter is 21 and in college. So I'm so thankful that I do not have to figure out all of this stuff that those of you in the parenting during remote learning are having to go through. And then to have multiples. I was only blessed with the one. And so it would have, I think, been challenging with one, but I feel like it would almost be impossible with multiples.
It's good and bad. So the socialization, because that's my biggest thing, is I want our kids to be socialized. So having 3 is great for socialization. Keeping them all busy and separate and finishing their work has been challenging.
Yeah, I bet. So, so I started off saying that you've been all 3. You've been the caterpillar, you've been the cocoon, and you currently are the cocoon because you are supporting, as a fellow master IEP coach, a lot of other families. And you are and have been the butterfly. So when I talk about you being the caterpillar, tell me and the audience what I meant by that.
So my schooling was difficult. So my parents didn't speak English. They've been in the country for quite some time, but they always spoke Sinhalese to us. And that's what I learned as my first language. So when I went into school, I was placed in an IEP without a technical diagnosis. But I was put in a self-contained class at the age of 6.
Wow. And so without a diagnosis, so you had your eligibility then like under other health impaired?
Yes.
Is that okay? I didn't know if you would remember that many years ago.
I didn't remember. I've gone past and I've looked at all my paperwork.
Okay. And so basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, you came to school and you were speaking another language than English. And
I spoke English, but I was a little bit slower at it.
Okay. And so because of that, they had to have done some sort of assessments, but I am presuming that all the assessments were in English.
Yes.
And therefore, that is why you didn't do well on them, whether you had a learning disability or any kind of way of learning differently, just that immediate barrier
yes,
was difficult.
It was. And I actually remember looking past it now. I remember sitting with a psychologist and her asking me questions and me looking at her like, I don't really understand what you're trying to say to me. I don't know how to answer you.
Right. And this was in, I think you told me California where you
It
grew
was
up?
in California and it was in the 90s.
Okay.
Well,
So,
89, 80, something like that. I've
okay.
just used myself a lot.
Well, I was trying not to make you say your
It's
age,
okay.
but so that at that point, I mean, the law had been in place a long time, and in California, I mean, I've not lived in California, but my understanding, and I don't know, maybe this is incorrect, is that there are a lot of people who aren't necessarily native English speakers.
Yes.
And part of being eligible for an IEP, one of the um, criteria that is used to determine if it is truly a learning difference is whether or not your family and you have a native language of English. So the fact that they seemed to not have cared about that or not have been able to do anything about that um, bothers me first and foremost. So, okay, so you went into school and you went into a self-contained class.
I did. So I was placed in general ed. So kindergarten, it was fine. And first grade is where I started having the problems. And I want to say it was like probably second quarter, they pulled me out and they put me in a self-contained class. And nobody told me anything. And they just said, this is where you're going to be from now on.
And your parents not speaking English and
Well,
trust.
they spoke English. So
Okay.
They didn't know. They just
Right.
assumed that it was the
Right.
right thing.
Because you have this institution known as the school system. And so are you their only or are you their oldest?
I'm their youngest, so I have a brother.
Okay.
My brother did fine in school.
Okay.
So when it came to me, I think they just assumed that the school knew best.
Mhm.
And I think the school district had approached it as, look, she's having trouble. This is what's going to help her. This is what she needs to be in. So without kind of questioning it, my parents just went along with it because the school district to them was trying to help me.
Right. Because I mean, yeah, if you don't know, you don't know. And that happens a lot, not just for families who speak other languages, but it also happens to families who their child is struggling and they think, or their child has behavioral issues, which we're going to get into that because you are an ABA therapist. So, okay, so your family is trusting that things are the way they're supposed to be. We're first, second grade now. Well, when did you start to think this isn't right for me?
So I started realizing that I shouldn't be in that class probably third, fourth grade, but I didn't really understand the difference until I hit fifth grade. So that was when my former classmates from kindergarten, we had a very small school. So my former kindergarten friends, we were all graduating, and I was told that I couldn't go to the graduation because I wasn't part of that class.
Oh,
So that made me feel horrible. I'm like, I go to the same school. It was very difficult for me to comprehend at that age, like what is happening.
right.
And I was put in a class with the kids with high behaviors and the kids that really needed a one-on-one. And I didn't feel like that was a proper placement for me.
Right. So around fifth grade, you started to self-advocate.
Yes. I started asking why.
Right. Well, and that, yeah, I mean, to me, that's advocating because if you're not just taking the status quo, then you're standing up and saying I need to do something. This isn't right.
Yeah.
So what kind of answers were you getting when you were asking why?
So at that age, they wouldn't tell me. So I asked my parents and they couldn't really understand why. So my parents hired a private tutor for me. They said, this is what the school wants. This is in your best interest. And And I kept on saying, why? So I started pushing back. But in my culture, that's very
Sure.
disrespectful. So it became a situation where I was being a disrespectful child instead of just go with the flow kind of person. And I'm sitting there in my head, but I don't understand. Just someone tell me why I'm here.
Right. Right. Yeah. You just wanted to know why, and no one was willing. And so therefore you go through all of elementary school
Yes.
receiving special education services. And did you think that those services were helping you, even though you didn't necessarily know why you needed them?
No. And looking back on it, I think they actually hurt me more than they did anything, because it was not a fair placement. It was not an appropriate placement, and it didn't fit the ideal law anyways. So it was a really big mess.
It certainly sounds like it. And so, okay, you get out of grade school and then you get into high school. And what happened in high school?
Middle school.
Oh, middle school. I'm sorry. What happened in middle school?
So I had a middle school teacher that told me that I couldn't go to college, and that my job or what, like, I was on the non-degree path, because back then that's where you were placed. And so we were working on job skills. So they wanted me to go out and wipe tables and things like that. And like, I really feel like I'm meant for more. And this was at 6th grade. And
right. And to make that determination, and I know that there are districts out there that, and by the way, hi, Fran, we had a guest say hello. I know that there are districts out there that in younger grades than even 5th or 6th grade have already determined by some metric,
right,
that a child is on the non-diploma track.
Yes.
And that blows me away, because I mean, obviously the name of the show is #NoLimits, and I cannot fathom that looking at a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or even a 10-year-old, that you can say they're not going to be able to get a high school diploma and be equivalent in their understanding to be able to get that high school diploma. That's just mind-boggling to me.
I 100% agree. And that goes with the broken system, because what I realized looking past was I was not put into the proper classes in the beginning to even qualify for my diploma. So I had to get extra help because I was not put in the right path. I was put in the limited path, where I was clearly not a child that needed to go there. It's one of the things that I fight for my clients and just anybody in general.
Right. And I think a lot of times that is what drives some of our passion for the different areas that we have.
Yes.
Because of our own experiences. So, okay, so you get out of middle school, hopefully, after this horrible teacher says, oh, you'll never go to college.
Yes.
I
know. Oh, I know. I will.
And it didn't even happen to me. So,
well, I'll tell you what happened when I saw that teacher at the park when I was with my kids. I'll let you know. It was not a pretty conversation, but it needed to be had.
You know, and I'm really proud of you for doing that. I know that I've had some people on, and they've had similar situations where someone has said to them, you're not going to do this, or you'll never do this. And they have done that thing. And I've asked them, if you ever saw that person, did you say anything? And they're like, well, no, because it wouldn't change anything, and, whatever. And I'm like, but to me, I would just feel like a sense of relief.
Exactly. That's what it was. So, but I had to go through really, really bad situations to get to that place to where I was able to tell her, do not ever set limits on anybody. And if you're putting somebody in a placement, you better damn well know that that's where that child needs to go.
Right.
This is everything that you've done to me. My dad happened to be there because we were visiting them the grandkids were visiting, and my dad looked at me. He's like, that is not appropriate. I was like, do not tell me that it's not appropriate. That is 100% appropriate. And I will say it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for, being the bigger person and not causing a conflict, but how will they ever learn
Exactly.
that their words, even if it's a flippant comment and they don't even really say it again, just that one time of saying it is too much.
Our words affect how we think and how we view ourselves. And if that's what you're telling a child, you should not be in that field.
Right.
Which is what I
Yeah.
told her too.
So now I'm curious. I want to know what her reaction was to all of that.
She just looked at me. And I let her know, I said, I graduated from one of the top 30 universities in the world. I went to UC San Diego. I listed everything that I did. I told her, I said, I've helped other families. I'm an advocate. I am an ABA therapist. I'm a program manager. And I said, I work with kids that you have deemed not eligible to live a quality, meaningful life. Do you think that I'm working at McDonald's? Do you see me working at McDonald's? Because that was my goal in her eyes. And she just looked at me speechless and she's like, I didn't know. And I go, exactly. You didn't know and you need to stop teaching if that's how you feel.
Right. Right. Because none of us know what tomorrow holds, positive ways or negative ways. So
2020 taught us not to, that we can't predict anything.
Oh my gosh. That's even, I think, worse.
Right? but you can't predict how these kids right now, they're navigating through a world of crazy.
Right.
But who are we to tell them that they can't graduate or do other things?
Right. Exactly. And to me, a teacher is a person, because I am a teacher. We are supposed to be building our students up and supporting our students and being their cheerleaders and their positives in their lives. Not that we're the only ones, but I feel like that is part of our job. And I don't even really have words. It's just baffling to me.
So there was one teacher, one out of all of the teachers that I've ever had, that helped me understand and stand up for everything and really got me to where I needed to be. But no, I fully agree with you. Teachers need to be role models and be that light in a kiddo's eyes, because sometimes that's all we have.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, thankfully, I feel like those are fewer than they are majority, but there are those situations, and we do need to be that person when that student comes to our room and needs that. And our guest says, live in the moment and prepare for the future. And that's so true, because yes, like we said, none of us know what tomorrow holds, whether that's us growing and blossoming into one kind of caterpillar, into one kind of butterfly, or something negative happening and us ending up in a different situation than what we thought was going to happen, positive in our future. So who was that one teacher?
That was my psychology teacher, and his name is Mr. Bushner. He pushed me. So I sat in his class and he came to me and he said, I want to show you something. He's like, I don't think that you really have sat down and looked at what your IEP says. So he walked me through what my IEP said. And he said, it says you're on a non-degree path. This is what they think your future is going to hold. And he goes, but you're not that. He's like, what they say on paper is not true. And so he was the person that I kept on asking, why? How do I fix this? What can we do? So he worked with me and he started going to my meetings and he helped me advocate and learn what I needed to do when I was a freshman in high school. So he helped me mainstream into regular ed classes. He got me tutors. He helped me understand what I needed to understand to get my high school diploma. But it took a lot of work because I had to catch up with everything that I had missed from elementary on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I imagine that was a lot of your weekends, a lot of your evenings, possibly even time in the summer.
I did have to go to summer school. And I worked so hard just to graduate with an actual degree. Then he said, "You're ready to go to college." And I was like, "Well, people are telling me I can't." And he looked at me, he's like, "You can. Do you know what you just did?" And so he told me, he goes, "Just try it." He goes, what happens if you fail? You fail. Like, it's not a big deal. So we set up my junior college. I went to junior college. He set up my schedule. And he goes, "Take a psych class." He's like, "Because you seem to like it." And he was correct. And I passed with all A's without needing extra help. And so I went on and I took more and more psychology classes, and I graduated with a AA, and I transferred to UCSD. And I graduated UCSD with honors. So, and that's what I told you. So, and I went back and I have my master's degree in human behavior, and I just took Catherine's mentorship course. So clearly I have the ability to learn. I just needed to figure out who would believe in me and what tools I needed to get there.
Right. So something I wanted to pull out of what we have said so far, and it is going to be sort of a silver lining, or I don't even know if it's a silver lining, but that you were on the non-diploma track and you were able to change that.
Yes.
So the encouragement that I want to give to people is, if your child is on a non-degree or non-diploma track and you find that out, or if you're a student listening and this is happening to you, you will have to work hard. As Sheree said, she had to do summer school and she had to put in a lot of extra time, but her life is vastly different because she put in that time and that effort. So just because you're possibly on that track right now doesn't mean you have to stay there.
It's not going to hold you back.
Yeah.
If you have the determination, you can do it.
Yeah.
Most of the kiddos that I've run into that are like the in-between paths are thankful for people to push them. Because the limitations that were put on me, it's not something that I would want for anybody else. And, if you're in that path and you need words of advice, I will walk that path with you. I will show you what you need to do. Any of our master coaches will help you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we were both just on a call with Catherine, or a training with Catherine just before. And I'd said in that, and I'll say it here, that was probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made, is going through the Master IEP Coach Mentorship and having all of the Master IEP coaches across the country now in the network, and being able to tap in and say, "Hey, this is what's happening. Does anybody have suggestions, or has anyone, had this scenario happen?" That's how you and I met. I mean, you and I do not know each other. This is the first time that we are seeing each other face to face, and there's just this nice bond and this, mutual respect and admiration for what each other does, because we don't all focus on the same area.
Yes.
So getting to that, but before I do, is there anything else you want to say about your elementary, your high school, or your college days?
In there, I had scoliosis. So
that's right.
That made me different also. So I had to wear a brace. Then I went in for surgery when I was 21, and I had to relearn how to walk. It was a nearly 10-hour surgery. So I had to go through PT. I couldn't drive for 6 months. There was a lot of things that I had to relearn because of my body. I have 2 titanium rods in my back, and
oh my gosh.
Literally, I've just had to reteach my body how to do things, like even how to bend to pick up things. So it's things that I take for granted. They didn't think I could have kids, but clearly I proved them wrong.
Not just once, not just twice, but 3 times.
Well, we made sure it was safe, but yes. So that was my thing. Is if you tell me I'm not going to be able to do something, I will do it, and I'll do it better.
Yeah, we probably have that in common because I'm sure my family would say the same thing about me. And yeah, if someone sincerely believes that I will not be able to do something or I should not do certain thing,
Yes,
yeah, I'm gonna do it.
that's me 100%.
Yeah, I forgot about the scoliosis, and I didn't. I mean, you did tell me that in our initial conversation the other day, but I didn't know you had to relearn to walk and to do all of those types of things. Um, so
In my
again,
Yeah, go ahead.
more limits that you're busting through in your lifetime.
It's been difficult, but everything that I've gone through has made me realize that I'm here as a support and I want my story out there because anybody that's experiencing half or all or some parts of what happened to me, the light is there and you can use that to support and help other people.
Right. And, you know, on this show, I've had people that are presidents of companies or, they're well known in their community. But one of the reasons, probably the main reason for doing this is that it's the average person that lives next door that I want people to stop setting those limits and stop having that mindset of, oh, they're not going to be able to do something. Now, I don't mean that to say that anybody can be anything and do everything, but to quantifiably say to somebody, you will never
Yes.
X, Y, or Z, that is not appropriate in my opinion.
I
Um,
Yeah. They're words of hurt and people like us will flip them and say, well, yes, I can. So those are words of encouragement to us.
right.
It can cause great psychological damage to anybody.
Yeah.
And I saw a therapist for years because I was a psychology major. So I was working out all my issues with
Right.
me and just everything. I have been for a couple years because it got to me and I was a depressed teenager because I knew that I could do other things.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's often an area that is looked over is the mental health side of things.
Yes.
Um, and anytime I would get a new student when I was teaching, I would tell the parent, I'm not just working on their academics. I am working on the whole child because most of the students, by the time they had gotten to the point where they knew that something was up, they had multiple years of red marks all over their papers and teachers telling them, you can't do this, you can't do that, you shouldn't do this, and having, putting so much effort in to their studies only to get things back all marked up, or to and to be told you didn't try on this. That's why you got all these questions wrong.
And I mean, that goes with how do we know if that child didn't try? And when I work with kids like that too, we always start with something that they can do and build up because it's the momentum, it's the psychological momentum that they need. My son, very similar. I post a lot about him and he's okay with me sharing his stuff. So he's a very much of a perfectionist. And yesterday was a terrible day for him because his teacher came back and said, your work was messy. And I can't tell you how much he tried and how long it took him to finish his work. And to say that to a kid that it's on a technical app, he doesn't know, he's in second grade, he's not used to this technology.
Right.
How are you going to say that to him?
Yeah. And I think oftentimes that teachers really don't mean harm,
Right.
but they're not thinking about how their words might come across. And not just teachers. I mean, there's, the parents, the siblings, the aunts and uncles and cousins and whoever, whatever. Doctors, I've heard so many times that doctors have told kids, well, you'll never do this and you can't do that. And we really do have to think about reframing
Yes.
how we say things, because effort is so vastly important. and we never talk about that in schools. It's just, oh, well, you got this grade or you didn't get this grade. And so you must have put in a lot of effort if you've gotten an A, and you must have only put in a minimal effort if you got something like a C or lower.
You're 100% correct. It's not talked enough about. And those kids I worry about, and I'm really worried about our kids right now, because we have a lot of kids dropping out. We have a lot of kids that aren't at grade level. We have standardized testing that doesn't even make sense right now.
Right.
And I mean, my daughter just had one and she came back crying because her grade wasn't as what it should have been. And the psychological damage that we're doing to our kids, it's not going to be seen for years to come, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. And I totally believe that we have to hold our teachers and our school districts accountable. And we do have to have ways to measure how a student is doing.
Yes.
I'm just not sure the way that we're doing it now is the best way, but I don't really have another solution to say, oh, we'll just do this and that'll be fine.
So what I've been working with school districts on is just using their diagnostic test, because they're testing on themselves, right? So the diagnostic is based upon age level, but it's also based upon where they are. So we've been doing a lot of the iReady diagnostics, which is a new program that many schools are using now. So that's some of the things that I have been fighting for. I sent a lovely email to our district about standardized testing and how it's crazy for them to even use now, and they shouldn't. But we are causing so much pain to these kids.
Yeah. And even, I mean, we have iReady in this area, and I don't teach full time anymore, but I sub. And even in some of the districts where I sub, they use it, but some people use it incorrectly. Yeah. And it's like anything, like Accelerated Reader started off as a great program to incentivize kids who loved to read.
Yes.
And in my area, it's become a punishment program almost, because now they give points to kids, based on their test scores in this program. And then if they don't hit a certain number of points every quarter or every semester, then they have to miss out on the fun things like the parties and the recesses and whatnot. And then they're forced to get the points at that point.
I mean, and that's not based upon it. We had talked about behavior, you and I, and that's rewarding, not reading. And I just feel like this whole system that we were in and that we are in now is broken. And we have to sit there and we have to really think about what's more important. Is standardized testing more important, or is a child's growth upon themselves more worth it? Or are we normalizing? What are we looking at right now? What are our data points?
Yeah.
Like, we're lost at sea with all of this.
Yeah, it is. And it is a crazy time to be in education. Whether you are on the teaching side of the educator role, or if you're, in the education world as a student,
or the parent.
Or the parent, yeah, because they are most definitely dually involved right now. And a lot of kids are becoming their own teachers in a lot of ways. Even my daughter at the college level, when this happened last year, she had to come home and do the rest of her semester online. Now this year, her college has been able to keep them on campus and have some classes in person, and they've been able to kind of figure it out a little bit. But when she was home last spring, it's like, she was basically teaching herself. It's like, why are we paying these exorbitant prices to the college?
Right. I have an emergency teaching credential, but I had to become a teacher back in March because our school just stopped and they didn't offer extra teaching. They got packets of work and said, here, do it. Well, how are you going to do it if we don't know how to do it? Right,
exactly. Yeah, so this is something that Fran said. She said individuals are just that, unique to themselves.
Yes.
So yeah, and talking about the diagnostic data and how they're growing.
We have to start measuring our kiddos, our IP kiddos, our 504 plan kiddos based upon themselves rather than society. And I will tell you, I never got a single retest after my first test when I was, mind boggling. I know.
That's not even legal.
I was never retested.
Wow.
Yes. So
oh my goodness.
It's something, these IEPs and kiddos with 504 plans have my heart because I was one. And I like that we are building a nest, a cocoon to hold them and help them, because I think without us, I don't know what the world of special education would look like.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you've graduated college and you have your master's degree, and so you became an ABA therapist. So explain what that is and what the goal of ABA therapy is overall, and then we'll get into some more finer points.
Okay. So ABA is applied behavioral analysis, and it really it was started for kids with autism, but it's behavioral principles. So there's lots of negative talk about ABA, but the long run of it is it's really just it's behavior modification, and that's what it does. I was trained in ABA, but there's many different types of ABA. There's verbal behavior, there's pivotal training, there's DTT, there's a lot that goes into ABA.
What is I know what DTT is because I've been trained in it.
Trial training.
Okay.
I think I got that. Yes.
Yep. That's what I was always told it stood for anyway.
Yes. So when you're sitting at the table and you're going through the cards and multiple repetitions, I would say that's very old school thinking. And it's not something that I was trained in it, but it's not something that I feel is helpful unless if it's an academic skill. But that's my 2 cents. So,
well, hey, this is about you, so you get to share your 2 cents.
People will fight all the time with that.
Yeah, well, but unfortunately, I think in today's world, people are going to fight about anything. So,
yes, I agree with you. But I was trained with the assumption of behavior is looking. So I'm gonna back it up a little bit. So I worked with kids with autism. So they had a difficulty in communication, right? So I was trained in a program called verbal behavior. So you looked at their words, and the main point of verbal behavior is to increase communication. So that's asking for items. I want water. I need a diaper change. Because younger kids will ask for things about 350 times a day.
Right.
True. So that principle is to increase the amount of demands that kiddo wants. Then you have labeling and conversations, what we're doing right now. You have social skills in there. You have following directions, listener responding, basically an entire school year's worth of things in this program. Everything that we work on with school, I've raised my kiddos on it. My husband, I ABA him too sometimes, but don't tell him.
Don't tell that to my husband because I did the same thing.
I mean, the dishes go in the dishwasher. It's not that hard.
So true. Yeah. That's actually, he had to teach me that.
Oh, well, mine is the dishwasher. All of them. They're all being ABA'd right now with the amount of dishes that we have floating around in the house.
Yeah, I just saw a commercial, or I don't know if it was a commercial, but it was basically that. It was like seminar in my home, and it was mom, and she was showing them like the shoes go here. And there was a dad and 2 kids and like, oh, wow. And then it was, the dishes go here. And I'm sorry, Michael. So Michael says, hey, stop picking on us men.
It's not men too.
I said I had the dishwasher thing. I had to learn that too.
Mine's the laundry. I have a pile of laundry. It's not just men, it's women too.
Right. So I'm going to pull a point out of here is that we all have unpreferred, how do we say it in IEP? Non-preferred tasks. So don't base my skill level on a non-preferred task, because I will wash the laundry, I will dry the laundry, but sometimes it sits for a couple of days before it gets folded and put away completely. So don't base my skill of being able to fold things on the fact that my laundry is still sitting there 2 days after it's been washed and dried.
Yes.
Find something that I prefer to do and then assess my skill. So sorry, that's an ABA thing.
We do that, but don't make assumptions. Don't limit our capability of anything by our non-preferred tasks, which we do all the time to kids.
Yes, absolutely. And that is something that I knew as a teacher to do with my own students, but I didn't really have the idea of the difference between preferred and non-preferred tasks until taking Catherine's mentorship and having her point that out, that don't assess kids when, because we hear that. And I heard that so often from teachers of, well, they can do it when they want to. Well, I can fold laundry too when I want to, but I need extra motivation when I don't want to.
Well, back to the motivation. So with IEPs, when I write IEPs, I write motivating what they're motivated for. So we will write a reward system on a behavioral plan because I feel like, again, this is something that nobody remembers to put in. You work to get paid. We all work to get paid. We like that. What do our kids like? Well, they don't have the intrinsic value of grades. So you have to find something that motivates them. I'm potty training my little one right now. She only gets M&Ms when she goes to the bathroom. She hasn't gotten M&Ms because she hasn't gone to the bathroom. But it's the motivation. I don't think that M&Ms are working anymore because they're not motivating her to go. So I'm looking for something else. She likes lipstick. I told her she could have lipstick every time she goes in.
But that's it, Shri. That's so important that we have to realize that if we're trying to change behaviors, we have to find a motivation that works. Yes. And I have been in districts where they have wanted to use the same discipline for every student. And then, I had kids who were getting lunch detentions or after school detentions constantly. And yet the teacher didn't understand, well, why isn't the behavior changing? Well, I'm not really sure which one of the learners is having a problem catching on at this point. Is it the student or is it the teacher? Because if you're doing the same thing and the results are not changing, you need to change something.
I see this all the time too. This is why it's called an individualized plan.
Right.
We don't just cut and paste. Right. And I will admit it, when I was a program manager for kids with autism, I cut and pasted, but I made that program and I made the rewards and I made that system individualized to that child. So you can have generalized goals per se, but you have to individualize it to get the end result.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I see this in districts. Even asking
We're both like, right now.
It drives me insane because we forget that these are kids. They're not going to want to do things for free.
Right. And we're not saying, so I don't want anybody who maybe just joined. I know, and this, my mom wouldn't count in this regard because she doesn't have kids that she's doing this with anymore, but she did join late and she apologized for that. But we're not saying you have to reward every single thing every single time.
No.
there is a strategy to ABA specifically. And I don't think I've ever mentioned this in this program, but I have developed my own behavior program, and it uses components of ABA. It uses components of crisis prevention intervention and nonviolent crisis intervention. And there are great things that I have used from multiple strategies that I was taught, and ABA is one of them. But yeah, the motivation is definitely such a key factor. Whether you want a positive change or you're trying to get rid of a non-preferred behavior. So Fran says, you know what assume means. So
yes, we do.
If you don't know, you'll have to look it up. I'm not explaining it on this show. And then she says, reassess. If you're not getting anywhere, probably missed something crucial. And that is so true. And we often forget to do that. You know, we just get so busy and so routine in what we're doing that we don't often have that ability to stop and think outside the box. And that's what we come in as master IEP coaches and help teams look outside the box.
And I think that you and I do a really great job with that, because we look at it from a behavioral point of view. My other point with that too is we have to look at the why. So this kind of works in regards of behavior and why is this kiddo not meeting this goal? Where is the why? Why is this happening? I was answering an autism society question, and a mom on there said, you know, my child is having such crazy behaviors. And a bunch of people were like, oh, do this, give them a timeout or ignore it. And I go, why? Why is this child having this behavior? Are they frustrated? Are they, what is happening? Tell me what's happening before so we can address it, right? Like take data.
Right.
But we have tons of kids that have these stagnant goals because we're not reassessing. We're not looking at it. We're not using motivation to get that goal. It's like an ever-ending loop. Like we have to stop. And we have to make reminders to ourselves too, I think.
Yeah.
I do benchmarks in our IEPs. Like, so if they're not progressing after a point, go reassess it because it's not working.
Right. Exactly.
Too much time.
Exactly. And I've done the same thing that you've just said, is, you know, that you're reading this thread after somebody has given a scenario, and I'll ask a simple question like, you know, why? Or I'll say, well, have you asked the child? And they're like, what? Why would I ask the kid? Because maybe they know why they, you know, why are they breaking a window? Why do they constantly break windows? Well, I mean, without asking, I'm assuming they're trying to escape something.
I will go, I mean, I use my son again as an example. So virtual learning, I will tell you, has been words that I cannot use on this show.
Thank you. I don't want the FCC coming down on me.
It's been very difficult for me. And he's having tantrums and he's engaging in behaviors that I've never seen before. I finally had to sit down and say, hey, what is happening, man? Because I forgot to, because it's routine. And I'm like, what is happening? He was, the app is not working and it's frustrating me. Oh, well, cool. Let's fix that for you, buddy. Right. Stop breaking things and we can help you.
Right. Exactly. And sometimes it does. It just takes that, oh my gosh, you know, so anybody that's watching with us live or watching the replay, we're not saying that we do these things perfectly. We are listening to our own advice as we give it, because we're human, just like you, and we're going to forget. We're going to get in the moment and forget to take that breath and that stop and go, oh, okay. You know, we lose our temper. I shouldn't say we, because I've not been in Sri, but I lose my temper.
I do.
Okay. So we lose our temper sometimes. We lose our cool. We go through everything, all the same emotions that you go through. We're just hopefully giving you some ideas when you can take a second to think. And Fran, I love this. Don't like boxes, prefer bean bags. We're going to that might be Fran I do another stream on Fridays called Friday with Fran. And this is the Fran that I do that with. So Fran, that might be our topic this Friday, because I really like, and I have some ideas in my head, but I don't know if that's the same ideas that you have. So she also said, what if you reassess and still can't find the key component? I'm gonna give that one to you.
So then I would say, well, are you talking about a goal or are you talking about a behavior?
I'm going to guess behavior, but I'm going to let Fran answer that for certain, just because
I'm give you two different answers.
This is true.
Behavior, I will tell you, behavior has a definite changing point if you target the correct behavior.
Yeah, she says
if
behavior.
You're looking at a behavior. Okay, so if you're looking at a behavior, you have to have multiple data points. So if you're in a school, you ask for a functional behavior assessment done by a BCBA, and it has to be a BCBA. It cannot be just a regular school psych. It has to be a BCBA because they're going to be invoking behaviors in a kiddo, and it has to be done ethically. So don't be going to the school board if you guys don't have a BCBA. Every school should have a BCBA, but they don't. So they're going to have to contract one out. BCBA has to do a functional behavior assessment. And at that point, they'll run a bunch of tests and they'll try to pinpoint the function. Sometimes, a lot of times in the classroom, there's two functions. It's usually attention or escape. Attention is always either the main one or an underlining one. And attention is really difficult to kind of take away. So you work with the students and you work with a teacher. We have a lot of attention seeker kiddos that I work with, and one just loves to blurt things out in class. So we've taught his teacher not to respond. So he doesn't get a response. And then he'll provoke his classmates and the people that sit around him. We've taught them not to answer him if he's not behaving appropriately. So to answer your question, you have to have the data, or you need to figure out the motivation too. So you might not have a correct replacement behavior. Does that make sense?
Well, it does to me. So a replacement behavior, for anyone who doesn't understand. So we often do this, and this is a point that I make frequently on my own page, is you can't just tell kids, don't do something, because then all you've done is told them what not to do, but you haven't given them what you want them to do. So the what you want them to do is the replacement behavior.
Yes. But if you have a behavior that's a self-stimulatory behavior, which I don't know if Fran's getting to that, those are really difficult to replace at school. You have to have something that forms the same sensation for those kiddos. If I notice that a kid has to have STEM, I will incorporate a break in that time that we think it's happening and let them do their break and allow them to STEM, but come back to class. And we just call it a break. But a good BCBA will be able to help you determine that. And that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to have to disagree with you about it has to be a BCBA, because I would do functional behavioral assessments as a special ed teacher. So
I know. Wow.
And I understand what you're saying, is it really should be somebody other than, or at least I think this is what you're saying, other than the teacher directly involved with the student, because they're going to have their sort of sway of what they assume is happening.
Yeah.
And it helps to have somebody who has studied a lot about behaviors, and like we just talked about, the underlying reason and the why behind it. What is it trying to communicate? That's something I say a lot, is behaviors or communication. So it's not in the law also.
It's not. However, it is in the it is in the ethics code for BCBAs. So this is a gray area, because I do believe that teachers would make great assessments. However, they're too close to that child first and foremost, which is what you were saying. And to do it properly, you do have to evoke behaviors. And that's technically not legal to do because
Right.
you're causing harm, but it wouldn't matter to you as a teacher because it's a different code of ethics. But the
Right.
reason why I say bring in a BCBA, because if you have a behavior plan and it's not changing and it's been like 6 months or more, then I say ask for a BCBA, because a set of eyes that just focus on behaviors can really help that kid.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you that there's a lot more to it than
Yes.
just going in and watching.
Oh,
Um,
it's complicated. Like a true functional behavior assessment, it's very complicated. I don't
yeah.
like doing them.
Well, Sheree, this has been awesome. And I think you and I mean, like I told you the night when we talked, just for me to get a little bit of idea where to go with this conversation, that we could talk for hours. It's already been almost a full hour that since we started. So I want to make sure that if anybody would like to get in contact with you, they have some ways to do that. So what are some ways that people can follow you or reach out to you if they would like to?
So you can find me on Facebook at Sri Hatharasinga. I might have to tag Kelly or Shelly on the thing because it's my last name is very long.
Yeah, did
Um,
y'all notice I didn't say her last name? I can say
my
Gerschler, but her other name I would so butcher it. So
my full name is Sri Hatharasinga Gerschler. So you can type that in. I can tag you in a post so you can see it. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram as Sri Gerschler Master or IEPs and more. And you can send Shelly a message and we can get to you. But I really enjoy talking to you. We can talk behavior or anything for days.
right, yeah, and behavior, I think that's such a big topic to cover that yeah, it's definitely one that could be spoken about for hours and we'd still never cover all the bases. So Fran says thank you. Her behavior that she was talking about was avoidance. So that's a little bit different than what you were talking about as far as attention, but yeah.
There's lots of things you can do for avoidance.
Right. Yeah. And so on that note, I'm going to wrap it up and I'm going to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, L.A. Jansen. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Fran, for commenting and being with us. And anyone else who was here live that we didn't know about, I appreciate you. I appreciate those of you who are watching this in the replay. If you'd like a free IEP checklist or virtual IEP checklist, you can go to my website, shellykino.com. And do you have a website, Sheree, or not? I can't remember what you told me. Okay. That's not a problem. I just didn't want to leave that off for you if that was an option for you. If you need myself or Sheree to help you, if you're in the IEP throes right now, we definitely are willing and wanting to help you make the world better for all, one IEP at a time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for letting me share my story.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.